Hello and welcome to this presentation with the topic Tips and Tricks for Teaching Creativity Online, which belongs to Unit 3 of the TICON learning content. In this presentation, you will learn about some tips and tricks for teaching creativity online. Based on our TICON expert panel, you will hear their suggestions to teaching creativity online. The tips and tricks videos are divided up into two parts, which last in total of approximately 18 minutes. Let's hear the first part of the TICON expert panel on tips and tricks for teaching creativity online.
I suggest the teachers to trust their students because the students can adapt more easily than us due to their ages, of course. So I can tell them that you can use any specific online methodology because the students can adapt very easily. Don't concern about their adaptation. If we adapt as teachers, they can adapt much more easier than us because they are, good to technology. They have been born to technology, so they can use any specific tool for problem solving or communication, any tool they can use.
Well, the thing online is that people tend to be an individual. So we also need to focus on methods that work by creating some kind of synergy when 4 or 5 people are together. So here you have to look for creative methods that are more on an individual level. What I try to focus on is focus that works for the individual, and methods that work in your homes, where the students could use their home as part of the thing of being creative. I also think it's important to understand some of the basics of how different creative techniques work. Some of them really have their strength in the synergy between people. You might achieve that online as well, but then you would be depending on some technical means, in my opinion, that the internet connection is stable. And maybe some intuitive tools in how can we share our thoughts and so forth. Some might have a screen that they can draw on, but then is the quality of a sufficient quality for others to actually understand what they draw and so forth?
I think experimenting, be creative yourself and feel free to experiment new ideas.
I can say that read more, learn more, and search more. And first, get the attention of the students, make them excited. Later, find a very creative question and get their thoughts.
The only one that I would say, it's not to replace everything entirely, but also lessons learned from COVID, if you like, not to go back to being stuck in a room with each other. And I think the technology definitely has enhanced the creativity and how we do it. So I would say to embrace it, but not replace the cultural interactions. The one thing I did find with the creativity is getting the individual a platform to speak and to articulate their idea and their viewpoint was really, really beneficial. But it is important as well, wipe the slate clean. Don't make the group build on one person's ideas. Get everybody, if you like, to communicate their idea or their thought, and then wipe the slate clean, because that way they've listened to each other and you are starting to get each person to see from multiple viewpoints. And it's that second round that I found is really where the creativity, if you like, comes in a lot more. And the other one, not to penalize students, if you like, it's not about getting it right. It's just about giving it a try and having equal amount of benefit and reward to the student for just trying. Because what's holding a lot of the students back, I find sometimes they're afraid to get the wrong answer or that they might be wrong. And that kind of holds them back that little bit, where if there is a reward system, just actually, communicate your idea, because even if it's wrong and it's that they misunderstood it, that can point back to the way that the idea or the problem was communicated in the first place. It can always solve to improve, or be used to improve. So they'd be kind of the issues I had, it's really about the listening and facilitating that So that would be my my 3 little tips and tricks.
I think it's knowing the motivation, or having motivated students makes a huge difference. I think being able to have numbers, small enough numbers for breakout rooms, that you can put them into breakout rooms and be able to work with them online that way. And they're much more likely to ask questions if they're in groups of 3 or 4 or 5 than in groups of 48 or 50. They're not going to do that. But with that comes extra resources. So if you're going to do a breakout session for only 5 in it and there's 50, you need 10 facilitators there to do that. So that's something. I would also kind of have it so that maybe 15-20 minutes material that you're delivering, no more than 20 minutes, because attention spans are probably less than that now, courtesy of TikTok. So we could bring 15 minutes and then kind of get them working and doing stuff for another 15 minutes, and then come back and reinforce what they've learned. So you need to be very careful of the timings. The traditional, let's go up and talk for 45 minutes or an hour and then do Q&A at the end. That doesn't really work online, and particularly for creativity. It's learn by doing. So learn by doing, they have to do stuff, but you have to kind of curate it. And templates are a really good way, and kind of give them an incentive or motivate them. A lot of the students that come on our enterprise challenges, they want jobs in SAP and Boston Scientific. They want to get it onto their CV, and they see the benefits of it. So they want to engage. So, it's motivational tips. It's keep the numbers small if you can at all. It's make it practical, that type of stuff, and keep it short. Short and snappy is much better.
Over them. I think the choreography of an online session is far more complex and less forgiving than in real life. And you cannot ad-lib. It's very hard to fill silences if you run into silence. So I think that whole, like the production, the facilitators, I think, and it's not something we really used in our sessions because of the nature of them, but even including things like music and films that add to the complexity when you're sharing them online. Like, you cannot underestimate how important it is to a really good session that they run well, and that people can hear the video and all of these things that so I think having a practice run, having a background team who are working with you to make sure that everything is running as it is, they would be an icebreaker. So if you have a group and you're trying to get them to be creative and you're trying to kind of build energy, have icebreakers that translate to an online world, because not all icebreakers do. I've seen epic fails and epic successes in the icebreaker section. So it's to find ones that resonate if you're doing online.
Let's hear the second part of the TICON expert panel on tips and tricks for teaching creativity online.
The most important thing is try things out and learn from your failure. I think you have to be bold, and you have to, I think it doesn't make sense to think too long about a certain approach. So the only way you learn whether that kind of things really work in real life is to apply them. And I think that's my most important advice I would give to colleagues. And then by applying them constantly and be very honest in criticizing yourself and adapting them, I think that's the core part here in online teaching. So it's more our online teaching creativity online. I think this is the most important thing. And if you don't apply things, you cannot learn, and you will not increase the quality of the whole environment. And the second thing always is be adaptive. So as I already said, every group of learners is acting in a way different, has other demands and expectations, and doesn't make sense to stuck to your original plan. It's very good to have one, but it's also important to be able to adapt the plan to the real life situation. The major don't is don't do too much in a defined amount of time. So don't apply too demanding designs. I think that's important. Be patient and be relaxed and split things. And another important thing is breaks People have to relax in such kind of environments and be very careful in curating and maintaining social relationships between the learners. So I think that's a very, very important thing. And if you miss that, if you miss this, this is really a pitfall. If you just focus on the task and if you're not focused on the participants, I think that's I would say the largest mistake you can make in teaching creativity online. Yes, so I think the most important thing is an immediate feedback. So be aware of how people are interacting. And I think if there are signals of that people are missing something, that are not able to create something, then my approach always is to stop the thing and change the perspective for a few minutes and to say, okay, what's your problem with the methodology? And then to adapt immediately the whole setting, because it doesn't make sense to stuck to your original plan. You can always fail in development in general, and one should apply the same agile framework or mindset to one's own didactical process as well. So this is one recommendation. So act immediately, adapt immediately. That's one thing. And the other thing, of course, is a structured feedback in the end of the process, to talk to the students again, okay, at which point in time you feel supported or you feel frustrated or you thought, okay, that's a really creative atmosphere or not. It helps me a lot as a teacher to adapt the things in the next year. And with every kind of evaluation, of course, it always depends on the on the current group of learners, and the next group can be totally different, in particular in smaller groups, as in our programs, for example. Every semester has its own flavor, so to speak, and you have to adapt to that, but still it makes sense to have these deep feedback afterwards, to be very strict and took some learnings from it and adapt it in the next semester. I think the best way to motivate the students is to let them present their idea and to provide them with valuable feedback and to give them an idea, okay, why should I do this and why it is useful for me? I'm not an entertainer, I'm not that funny in class, but I think a clear feedback, that's really motivating. If the people still, okay, we're on the same page, I know what to do, and I immediately feel, okay, it makes sense that we're acting in this way, and to provide the students with that kind of information, with that kind of feedback, that's the best motivator from my point of view.
It's a completely different preparation that is needed. So you need to really think about which tools would you use and which online environment, and then you need to prepare stuff very carefully, because you're losing people much faster. If I'm in the classroom and I give them an exercise and somebody doesn't understand the task, then I see it and I can go there and I can tell the person what I expect from them. If this happens online and they are somewhere lost in a breakout room, then I cannot. And I will also not see that they don't understand it. So preparation, all the templates, all the rooms, the timing, that's much more, that needs to be much more focused on being 100% clear on what you want them to do when, and explaining well what they have to do. And really think about how are you going to organize it. So be well prepared. I've most of the time used Teams, because Teams allows me to make folders to which everybody has access, and then I made one folder per exercise and I made a template per exercise, and sometimes I even wrote names on specific pages so that people would know where they would have to start. Really think about how to instruct the exercises and make sure that there is some interaction. When you do these creativity methods online, then you're quite often inclined to go for individual exercises because they're easier to instruct. And as you don't know, or as you can't be in all group rooms when you have breakout rooms, you will not see the different questions that arise at the beginning of an instruction. So that is really critical. Instruction is critical. Don't put people into group rooms without being 100% sure that they know what they should do.
Tipps und Tricks auf jeden Fall Zeit gut planen, Mut für Pausen, Feedback einholen und ansonsten auch wirklich einen spielerischen Umgang mit verschiedenen Tools und also einfach auch zur Interaktion anregen. Also das sollte nicht so sein, dass irgendwie allein die Erklärung des Tools zu lange Zeit einnimmt oder dass der Moderator zu viel Platz einnimmt im ganzen Setting. Also es muss wirklich interaktiv etwas erarbeitet werden. Do's, kontinuierlicher Austausch mit den Teilnehmenden, don't Situationen falsch bewerten. Also das, was ich vorher gesagt habe, dass man irgendwie gewisse Reaktionen von den Teilnehmenden falsch aufnimmt oder persönlich nimmt, sondern wirklich, dass man da Ruhe bewahrt und immer überlegt, okay, wie kann ich jetzt die Situation positiv lösen, wie kann ich jetzt vielleicht irgendwie einen positiven Impuls setzen, dass das Ganze wieder gut weitergeht. Lieber Miro einsetzen als das Whiteboard von Zoom. Also insgesamt natürlich erstmal mit den Tools, die man anwenden möchte, sich wirklich auseinandersetzen und verstehen, wie die funktionieren. Also auch so ein Pre-Test, so ein technischer Pre-Test wird auf jeden Fall immer wichtig sein. Nicht gleich beim ersten Mal mit Dingen reingehen, die man davon nie ausprobiert hat, weil gerade dadurch ergeben sich auch viele Dinge oder auch Hindernisse. Also das auf jeden Fall, also Testing von den Tools im Vorfeld, auch Austausch mit Kolleginnen, die auch anwenden, was man da beachten kann und so weiter. Vorbereitet rangehen, definitiv.
Ich fange mal bei den Don'ts an. Don'ts heißt, das darfst du auf keinen Fall machen oder das darfst du auf keinen Fall denken. Oder ich habe schon die Lösungen, wenn da nicht bei dir dasselbe rauskommt wie das, was ich mir vorgestellt habe, dann ist es falsch. Also ich werde auch immer wieder von Studenten gefragt, was erwarten Sie, Herr Thyssen? Und die Antwort ist immer gar nichts. Weil in dem Moment, wo ich meine Erwartungen an so ein Projekt heranbringe oder an einen kreativen Prozess, kann er nicht mehr kreativ sein. Es gibt so ein wunderschönes Video, das ich gerne zeige. Da ging es das ist ein tschechisches Video, wo es noch zu sozialistischen Zeiten um Zensur geht. Und da ist dann eine Balletttänzerin, die übt und daneben steht einer und sagt, nee, das hast du jetzt falsch gemacht. So darfst du nicht tanzen. So musst du den Kopf auf keinen Fall halten. Und der mäkelt so lange rum, bis die arme Tänzerin überhaupt nicht mehr tanzen kann, weil ihr alles vorgegeben wird von außen. Also das tötet die Kreativität. Deshalb muss ich einfach viele Möglichkeiten bieten, muss Freiräume bieten, muss auch Vertrauen haben in die Lerner. Also ich kenne das auch aus Schulen, da wo selbstgesteuertes Lernen stattfinden kann und die Schule Rahmenbedingungen schafft dafür, können sich Lehrer auch zurückziehen und die Gruppen machen lassen. Also in Wudöschingen beispielsweise, das funktioniert, weil das ist eigenverantwortlich. Und wenn ich eigenverantwortlich arbeite, dann kann ich kreativ sein und dann bin ich auch sehr stark intrinsisch motiviert. Das heißt, von innen heraus, weil ich die Sache wichtig finde. Und das ist, glaube ich, das größte Do, dass eben Kreativität nur dann möglich ist, wenn sie intrinsisch motiviert ist. Wenn ich die Sache mache, weil sie mich interessiert, weil ich das will, weil das mein Ding ist, weil ich was erreichen möchte, all diese Sachen. In dem Moment, wo ich von außen belohnt oder bestraft werde, geht die Leistung runter und da ist Kreativität dann auch immer weniger möglich. Also gute Kreativität wächst unter optimalen Bedingungen. Das sind Träume, das sind Möglichkeiten, das sind Materialien, die ich habe. Das sind Freiheiten, eigenständig Dinge zu entwickeln und wirklich auch alle Lösungsmöglichkeiten zunächst mal zuzulassen. Klar, im Beruf gibt es dann auch Rahmenbedingungen, Budget und Zeit und all diese Sachen. Aber erstmal brauche ich eben diese großen Freiheiten, dann geht Kreativität.
Now we have reached the end of Part D of Unit 3. We hope you could get some useful tips and tricks for teaching creativity online. Authors of the slides were Andreas Vilhøft from University of Southern Denmark. The voiceover was done by Andreas Vilhøft from University of Southern Denmark. For participating in the videos, we want to thank our TICON expert panel. In this presentation, the experts are mentioned here.